What up, cucks? It's your boy the Hater up in this mug, and I wanted to do a video on Bret Hart. However, I can't do a wrestler review on Bret Hart because, quite frankly, I didn't really watch Bret Hart's career because I started watching wrestling around 1998, all right? And by then, he was a jobber at WCW. I mean, he wasn't a jobber, but nobody cared about him, and I was always a WWF guy. So instead, I'm going to do a rant on Bret Hart to tell you guys my feelings on him and why I think Bret Hart is an overrated hack. Personally, I don't like anything that this jobber stands for. Now, I'm told that he's great in the ring. Personally, I don't see it, right? I've played as him in various WWE games, and his moves are boring, so I don't care, right? Now, the thing that I want to talk about, there's two specific things, right? First, one of the criticisms that Bret Hart levies a lot is to people like Goldberg, because Goldberg kicked him in the head and ended his career. And Bret Hart is like, Goldberg ended my career. Yeah, obviously, that's a botch. That's a mistake. But you can't hold that against Goldberg, right? You have to hold that against other people, right? There's other people out there that are to blame for this, not Goldberg himself, right? First of all, the people that put Goldberg in the ring and allowed him to wrestle, right? Goldberg can only do what Goldberg can do, right? Goldberg is not a booker. Goldberg is going to go and try to do his best. Now, maybe his best wasn't good enough, which happens, right? We can't do anything about that. These things do happen. But at the same time, it's like, what are we supposed to do? You know what I mean? We're supposed to just like all of us have to just, bend to Bret Hart's will. Like, Bret Hart is one of these people that took wrestling too seriously. Like, wrestling is a work, right? And Goldberg shouldn't hurt anybody. But I don't think that he did it on purpose. You know what I'm saying, cuts? And with all that being said, we find ourselves in a situation where a lot of Bret Hart's criticisms, I think, are a little bit excessive, right? This just happened to be a botch that, ended his career, right? And that's not good, and I empathize with that, right? It's like, you don't want your career to end, because someone kicks you in the head, right? But at the same time, it's also like, bro, let's not get it twisted here, right? I've seen the kick, and it didn't even look that bad. Now, I can't judge it because I wasn't kicked by Goldberg, who was like 295 pounds. So I don't know, right? But it just seems like if someone's kicking you, put your hands up and protect yourself like everyone does, even when people don't kick them, right? Now, Goldberg cannot be blamed by this, but the fact that Bret Hart has made it his personal mission to just pretty much talk about how much Goldberg sucks, it really doesn't sit well with your boy, and here's primarily why, right? In the, I guess we'll call it a limited series, The Death of WCW, a lot of people were like, what killed WCW? And a lot of the stuff that I saw was just bitching and moaning for Bret Hart. Let's say it like it is. This guy wasn't that good, man. I don't care if he was over. I don't care if he was great in the ring. I've heard him cut promos. Generally speaking, his promos are boring. He's got a few good ones, but generally speaking, they're not good promos, right? And with all that being said, it's like, I gotta ask myself, what is it exactly that makes this guy great? You know what I mean? Because it sure as shit isn't something that I'm seeing, right? The second and most important part of this is the Montreal screwjob, right? This thing really pisses me off, right? The fact that it's even labeled the Montreal screwjob is absurd, right? What was actually happening, anybody who's over the age of 17 can really understand this very simply. What's happening is this. Bret Hart has a contract to do a job, right? And the job indicates that he must do as he's told by the bookers and, more importantly, by the owner, Vincent Kennedy McMahon. Vince must tell him, today you go out and you lose to S.A. Rios, right? So he goes out and should lose to S.A. Rios and shut the fuck up and do his job. It's not that deep. It's not a real sport, motherfucks. But because Bret Hart is like stupid, he really believes that this is a real sport. And I understand you want to protect your character. But what the hell did you think was going to happen? You think Vince McMahon is going to let you keep the title, then the next day give it up, and then after that go to a different company? Like, how stupid do you have to be, right? Number one. Number two, the entire premise, that the entire philosophy that Bret Hart somehow has any say in what happens with the way he's booked is preposterous. I know that back in the day people had booking power, right? Because, the owners were, didn't have the balls. But this is not normal, right? You're going to go out there and lose. This would be the equivalent of I hire The Rock to do a movie, and I say, you're going to play the character this way, and he says, well, no, actually, I'm going to play it the way I want to play it. No, fuck off then, right? And even with The Rock and people like that, they have clauses in their contract that say like The Rock cannot take more than 3 punches, from the bad guy or something like that, right? To protect his character, I guess, right? And that's silly shit, right? If you want to make good stuff, you got to listen to the boss, right? More importantly, if you want to be a good employee, you got to listen to the boss. Now, Bret Hart basically gets screwed, quote unquote, by Earl Hebner, by Vince, by Shawn Michaels, presumably, and he's pissed off, right? And then there's this idea that for some reason, now people have to like tolerate Bret Hart, right? They have to tolerate his temper tantrum, right? He spit in Vince McMahon's face. It's a fucking joke, bro. It's not a real sport. You didn't really get screwed. This is the part that bothers me. They're like, Bret Hart got screwed. No, he didn't really get screwed because it's not a real job. He got paid for his role, and they just didn't tell him what was going to happen. And quite frankly, why should they, right? They should lie to him because he's an idiot. He thinks that he's going to get everything he wants. For what reason? You're leaving the company. What an egomaniac, right? Then he goes on for years, bitches and moans about how he was screwed, right? Like Shawn Michaels, there's that clip where Shawn Michaels is like, I swear to my like kids that I had nothing to do with this or whatever, right? Earl Hebner, same thing, right? And it's like, why are you threatening these people in real life, right? This is like the equivalent of watching a soap opera and like one other actor, like who plays the role of a different character that slept with your wife, and you're like, oh my God, how could you do this to me? I've been screwed. No, you haven't been screwed, motherfucker. This is a job. It's not real. Like, I don't know how else to say this, motherfucker. It's not real. Wrestling is not real. Nothing that happens is real. Bret Hart is not really the world champion of anything. Shawn Michaels didn't really beat him to become the real world champion of anything. It's not real. But because Bret Hart is Bret Hart, he keeps bitching and moaning. And then this is like another thing. Like, The Undertaker was pissed off at Vince too. Why? Right? Don't you understand that this thing had to be done? It had to be done, motherfuckers. Otherwise, we may not be talking about WCW the way we're talking about it. We may be talking about WWE the way we're talking about WCW, right? These are the differences. The same way that Eric Bischoff cannot be held liable or accountable for going and spoiling the results of Monday Night Raw. It's fucked up, but it's understandable that he would do that. He's trying to get an edge. You know what I mean? And it's the same thing with Vince. He's trying to get an edge. And people like Jeff Jarrett and stuff like that, they hold him hostage. I mean, I know it was afterwards, but you understand what I'm saying, right? They hold him hostage, and Bret Hart is supposed to we're supposed to pretty much bend the knee. Oh, Bret Hart's leaving. Everyone give him a standing ovation and let him win the title. No, motherfuckers. You're going to get screwed in your home country by a better wrestler called the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. You know what I mean? So, with all that being said, I personally think that Bret Hart was an overrated hack. I don't like. Does he have? What are the 3 other moves that he does? Right? He does the sharpshooter. That's it. According to WWE games, he has like a little elbow thing, a little forearm drop. It's like a bullshit move, This guy, I'm sure he could do a lot of things and he can make it look good, but I don't particularly care about that, right? I care about entertaining me. And the Montreal screwjob, which in my personal opinion is the beginning of the Attitude Era as we know it, right? The Montreal screwjob is great storytelling. But Bret Hart wasn't on board with it. They should have told him, hey man, we're going to just screw you out of the title. Is that okay? Right? Because obviously you can't force Bret Hart to let Shawn Michaels pin him, right? If he's going to be a little bitch and be like, I know way I'm getting pinned by Shawn Michaels. I'm going to kick out at everything unless I'm allowed to win. Yeah, me. Right? They could have offered him. They could have said, hey man, is it okay if we just screw you out of the title? And he should have been like, yeah, that seems like a fair compromise. I shouldn't get exactly what I want because, quite frankly, I'm leaving the company high and dry, right? As the champion, and I'm leaving. So, you declare that you're going to leave, and you still want to be treated with loyalty? Fuck out of here, motherfuckers. Now, the actual breaking of the loyalty cannot be excused, right? If Earl Hebner swore on his kids that he wouldn't screw Bret Hart, and Vince McMahon swore, those are breaking. If you break your promise, you should be judged for breaking your promise. However, if you didn't break your promise, right, nobody should be angry at you. And if you break your promise, they should be angry at you for breaking your promise. That's it, motherfucks. They shouldn't be looking after you to beat you up because you, quote unquote, humiliated them on national TV, which you didn't, right? Bret Hart had the pedestal to next week or the next day rather, go to WCW Nitro and say, I was screwed, right? That's it. You were screwed. I'm the real champion from the other company, right? Now I want to be the champion here, right? That would work. But Bret Hart wants to just be on top despite not earning the right to be on top. The boss doesn't think you should be champion. The end, motherfucks. And that's what bothers me the most about Bret Hart, right? It's that now he's like this crying, complaining little bitch. You know what I mean? Like, oh, the Hart Dungeon was real. I don't give a rat's ass about the Hart Dungeon. You know what I'm saying? Like, WWE was awesome back then, or it was starting to become awesome, right? There are so many people that are better than him that came after him. That's why WWE beat WCW. But the way this guy talks is that he actually believes that he's the best. And that's a good attitude to have. I'm not saying like the hater thinks he's the best at what he does, but it doesn't matter. The point is that even if you think you're the best, you still have a job to do, right? So based on that, and the fact that I've never seen Bret Hart like have a feud. I've seen a few of his matches like back in the day, you know what I mean? Like I've gone back to watch them basically. But quite frankly, if I'm being honest, I haven't gone back to watch that many of them, right? Because I find Bret Hart to be incredibly boring. And to me, he is the opposite of what wrestling is. He's someone that takes the craft seriously. He's basically a smaller Gunther. You know what I mean? I don't like that. I'm more into the promos and stuff, right? And Shawn Michaels obviously was better than Bret Hart at that. In my personal opinion, he was also better than him in the ring as well. But, you know, that's up for debate. Anyways, cucks, this has been the rant about Bret Hart. In conclusion, he's a little bitch for continuously going after Goldberg. Like, Goldberg didn't do it on purpose. Like, fucking, it's time to forgive him, fuck. You know, Owen Hart broke Stone Cold's neck, right? It's time to forgive, right? You know, people make mistakes. That's the nature of the business. And then the worst part, the Montreal screwjob, they shouldn't be this controversial thing at all. They should just be like, there's no need to make documentaries about it. What really happened? Here's what happened. Bret Hart didn't want to do as he was told, so they forced him to do as he was told. The end. Simple as that, cucks. You know, and they didn't ask anything of him. It's not like someone came into the ring, like it's not like they sent Big Show to just brutalize him. He wasn't even there at the time, but you know what I mean. They didn't send like Farouk and Bradshaw to just beat the shit out of him and then knock him out so Shawn Michaels can pin him. They didn't do that, right? What they did was they just innocuously like made it seem as if he tapped out when he did it. Big fucking deal. Get over it, motherfucker. It's been like nearly 30 years up in this bitch. That being said, fucks, that's what the haters gotta say about that, bitches.